You're listening to the Classic Gamers Guild podcast.
Hello mates, welcome back to the Classic Gamers Guild podcast. I am joined today with Rick and Anna, who are both doing well, I assure you. Maybe not Rick, but you know, he's gonna walk it off. He'll be fine. Today we're joined with a very special guest, somebody I've been looking forward to speaking to for quite some time. He is the creator of Yakwaxlips, which is probably the best thing to happen to adventure games in quite some time. He's filling a much needed gap or void in news for adventure games, specifically indie developers and things like that. He's just bloody brilliant. So I'll just let him talk instead of me talking about him while he listens, which is kind of weird.
Rude, Paul. Rude.
Michael, welcome to the show, mate.
Yeah, thank you. I love people talking about me. That was. I'm going to use all of that quotes on my future things. The best thing to happen to indie adventure games in a while. That is just going to be plastered all over my website now. You know that.
Yes.
I always wanted to be quoted. Lovely.
But yeah, I'm well. Thank you very much for asking me on. It's a real privilege to. I listen to you guys all the time, so yeah, to be asked is a genuine privilege. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thanks for listening to us, mate. We've invited all three people that listen to the show on, so it's been quite lovely to have them on.
He's got to cycle through them again after this, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure, Michael, you know, just as well as the next, that you have to really adjust your expectations as far as numbers are concerned when you're focusing specifically on adventure games, because it's quite a niche little market. You know, I think a lot of YouTubers would be excited over 7,000 views, and we're pretty excited about 700.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty excited about when it hits three figures. Like 100 is, I'm like delighted and doing a little happy dance. So yeah, it's definitely definitely its own very little niche.
Do you think that you've brought in some people that are not necessarily adventure gamers?
Quite possibly. I don't really analyze my audience. I like to talk to them a lot. But there's a lot of people that I've met that used to play the games back in the day in the 90s and kind of lost touch with them. And I think I hope to think that I've rekindled their relationship with them, and they may have gone on to buy all the newer batch of games. I say newer in inverted commas, you know, since 1997 onwards.
Mm-hmm. Well, from what I can see of your content, you like the classic adventure games, but you're also interested in supporting indie developers and newer games that are out in the same vein.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, going back not that long, even like 3 years ago, possibly, all I did really was play the classics, you know, Monkey Island once a year, chuck in a few extra LucasArts games, and kind of that was it. And it wasn't really till I decided, you know, I wanted to start something about adventure games, like kind of a deep dive into the classic adventure games. And then I discovered this other world of actually this genre is still kind of alive and kicking, and there isn't anyone really shouting about it too much. So I thought, you know what, I guess I can just shove my oar in and give it a go myself. And since then, I mean, I probably have hundreds of games that have been released even in the past like 5 years, let alone before that, all adventure games. And yeah, it's the best thing that I've ever done, just diving into this genre and starting Yakwaxlips and shouting from the rooftops about all these newer adventure games and new developers.
What have you noticed has been a difference between an adventure game made in the 90s, say like a Sam & Max, to some of the newer adventure games that are out there by companies like Wadjet Eye or other ones, as far as like style and how they're put together? Or do you think they're kind of like the same?
I don't really think they're the same, to be honest. With the Wadjet Eye games, you've obviously, you know, you've got the pixel art, and I'll say right from the start, I'm an absolute sucker for pixel art. If it's got pixel art in it, I'm going to play it. But I think the games these days are kind of targeted at people who used to play them. So, you know, I was in my early teens in the mid 90s. And the games then were being targeted at people in their early teens. The games that are out now are being targeted at people that are in their mid to late 30s and upwards. So the games can be a lot more mature. And also, what with people having no attention span whatsoever, they need to have a real strong story and a real replayability. It's quite easy to play a computer game and then forget about it 5 minutes after you finished it and never play again. But if you've got a Wadget Eye game like Unavailed, you can play that several times over with different characters. I recently finally managed to play Lamplight City from Francisco, and
Nice.
The choices on there, it closes off cases, and I want to go back and replay some of that. So I think it's an evolution is what it is. And so I think they're different in that aspect. But yeah, I mean, you can't discount just the whole classic era of LucasArts, because I mean, that's what I grew up with. And I think nostalgia does play a big part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, one thing I love about your channel, just in a completely selfish way, is the fact that you are biased towards pixel art, because I am as well, to the point where I've got so many great non-pixel art games to play, but 5 new ones with pixel art come out before I'll ever get the chance to. So it's kind of sad to say that if it's not pixel art, I'm probably just not going to have the time to play it, just because I vehemently prefer the pixel art over it. But you hit the nail on the head, mate, when you said, we were in our early to mid-teens or whatever in the 90s, and nowadays all those people like us are in their mid-30s, mid-40s, and making the games or talking about them. So it is a revival, and it's nice that some of the bad trends have died, like Walking Dead scenarios, to see developers learning from mistakes and things like that. So I guess one thing I'd be curious, I've played a lot of modern adventure games, modern classics or whatever, but nowhere near as many as you have. So similar to Anna's question, but just to go, I guess another layer into it is, what have you noticed when you fire up an old game after playing one of the new ones? Is it jarring? Because it's pixel art and because the adventure game genre itself hasn't changed mechanically too much at all, is it noticeable when you're playing an old game after you play a new one?
Honestly, I don't think it is. I mean, I tend to play the older game. I tend to replay the old classic. I keep going back to LucasArts, mainly because I grew up with the LucasArts. I never really played any of the Sierra games, but there's things like...
Gasp!
I know, yeah, I didn't want to say that because I know you guys focus so heavily on Sierra. But yeah, LucasArts and Revolution with their Broken Sword and Law of a Temptress and that. Going back to those old school games, I kind of... I mean, I grew up with them, so I can't really say that they're, it's not bad, but I think I know them inside out, essentially, is what I'm trying to say. So to go back to an old game, which I haven't really played, I can't really think of anything I've played in the past 5 years that I've missed as such. I mean, I have them all in my Steam library, and then I think, I'll play that after I finish this game, and then another 10 games will come out that I want to play. And like you with the pixel art, I'm going to play those rather than the old games because I want something new. I guess with the old games, going back to the whole choices issue, is that they're very linear. You kind of know them inside out. You can finish them all in. I mean, you can finish Monkey Island in 2 hours if you want to. I mean, why you would want to, I don't know, but I don't really think there's a quality issue there. I don't think it really jars as much. The only thing is, like you mentioned, is the dead ends. I loathe to play Zack McCracken again because it's literally, I don't think I've played it since it came out in 1990, whatever it was, 1990, and I don't think I've played it really since because, I mean, it just sucked, basically. Just the fact that there was a dead end there. And these days, I haven't got the patience, and it's far too easy to go to Google and type in Zack McCracken walkthrough. And that's not how you should play a game. You should play a game and use your head, and it's just not, people haven't got enough patience to do that, I don't think. Well, I say people. Yeah. I don't have enough patience.
I don't. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, no, that was a fair assumption.
Do you go back and replay games that you liked before, perhaps like Broken Sword, for example, but do you ever go back and replay indie games that you've enjoyed?
I can't think of any really off the top of my head. I will pretty much play the big hitters. Like I say, LucasArts Revolution. I can't really think of any smaller game that I have. I mean, maybe that's a compatibility issue, and you can't get them unless they're on like abandonware, which I don't really like to do. But if they're on Steam or GOG, again, I'll play the classics, and then if I have the choice to either play an old school classic or an old school indie, I'm probably going to head towards the classics. But then, like I said earlier on, I've only really been, it feels like I've been doing this for 10 years, but I've only been doing Yakwaxlips for just under 2. And before that, like a year of kind of reinvigorating myself into the genre. So, I mean, there's still time. There's always time to play the old games. So,
outside of What Jedi and Grendaslav, because those are just way too easy, what are some of your favorite modern indie adventure games?
I loved from last year, I think it was. I loved Roki. Like, I think it was a breath of fresh air. It's not pixel art. It's from, who's it from? Polygon Treehouse. And there's no talking in it. It's all very short, like grunts and noises. But what that shone through is it's the story. Like, if it's a good story, I'm gonna love it. And Roki was just top draw story. So that's definitely, I would recommend that to anyone, whether they're young, old, like the classics, like pixel art, whatever. Apart from that, off the top of my head, on the spot, I mean, I kind of like the Siberia series. Again, it's kind of a big one, I guess. But again, I like long, like drawn out stories. I mean, the puzzles aren't that great in that, but it's about the story, I guess. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, no, I agree. And actually that leads me to a question for you. I'm much more story based, to the point where I'm probably more impartial towards puzzle difficulty than anything, but I really, especially nowadays, just don't mind a nice, easy game puzzle-wise. How do you feel about that? If the story's great, will you strike a point off or two if the puzzles are too easy?
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't at all. I've just recently finished playing Encodia, which came out a couple of weeks ago, and I loved that story. The artwork was just top drawer. It's amazing. The puzzles were, pick up this, use it with that, and use it. It was really straightforward. As soon as you saw the items in your inventory, you're like, I know what I'm doing here. It's kind of puzzles by the numbers. But the story, I thought, was really, really strong, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I've not got a problem. I mean, if the puzzles are bad, then it's really going to bring a game down. But if they're easy, it's not. I mean, I literally this morning finished playing. It's not a point and click adventure game. It's more of a puzzle game. I recently finished playing Luna, the Shadow Dust, which came out a year ago, I think. And again, it's a story about a young boy and a cat who get together. It's very ambiguous, the story is. It's kind of a bit hazy, but you basically got to climb this tower, and each room you have to fix some kind of puzzle, push some buttons, pull levers, push boxes, that kind of thing. But the story and the art were pretty cool, and I enjoyed that, even though the puzzles were a bit, it was okay. The puzzles were fine, but the art was amazing. It's one of some of the best art I've seen in a game for many a year. And you touched onto the music to that. So I guess if one part of a game isn't that great, if the rest of it is great, I mean, I'll gladly play it, and I'll gladly recommend it as well. I mean, I guess that's kind of why I've set myself up for what I am. Like, I play games to recommend to people, and I'll say what's good, I'll say what's bad. If there is a specifically really, really bad game or bad thing, I'm not gonna mention the game, because I don't want to put anything down on the developer who spent all this time and effort on it. It's not fair on them. I might just send him a DM saying, thanks for the option to do this. I'm afraid I didn't like it. I'm not gonna push it out there, because I don't want to be that guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that's delightful. I kind of the mind frame, like trying to teach my son, since he's using YouTube, for example. I'm like, don't be the thumbs down guy. If you don't like it, just walk away. If you like it, give a thumbs up. If you don't like it, just walk away. Don't be that guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
How much time in a week do you think you currently spend on Yakwaxlips and all of the work that you do with it?
More than my actual job at the minute, to be honest. I probably spend about 30 to 35 hours a week. And every spare moment I get, I'm on it. I'm either playing a game, I'm either recording a video, I'm either talking to awesome people on a podcast. I put no bones about it. I like to do this for a living. It would be amazing. And I'd be clawing at every post to try and do that. And to do that, I need to put the work and the effort in. And so that's what I'm going to do. I have a job. I'm self-employed, so I kind of give myself my own hours, which helps. And with what's going on around the world at the minute, I'm not at work anyway, so I've got all that extra time. So yeah, lot.
If things were different, do you think that you would be traveling around as this profile or doing anything on the go, or do you think it's best suited for you just working from home?
I'd love to go around. I would love to just dive in even further. Like I was gutted when Adventure X was cancelled last year, because I would have been there, and hopefully it's on this year. I'd be there like a shot. And any indie developer that's doing a game, creating a game locally, I would be out there and, badgering them, knocking on their door saying, can I talk to you about this? I mean, the internet's amazing. I wouldn't obviously be talking to you guys if it wasn't for the internet, but there's only so much you can get out of it, I guess. If you're trying to create something, the more effort and the more time there is you put into it, the more it's going to grow and the more people are going to take notice. Yeah,
no, absolutely. Well, it's very obvious how much time you're putting into Yakwaxlips, because for me, it can be exhausting just to try to keep up with the releases and the demos and the wish listing and everything that we try to do to support all the indie devs. But you're playing them all, you're downloading them all, diving in, screen grabbing, screen capturing the entire experience to put into a video later. I mean, it's a lot of work, and it's part of the reason I appreciate your channel so much. The only downside to your channel is that it tends to cost me money, because you'll go through reviews and such like that, and I'll head over to Steam or GOG or whatever. And, so there's that, but of course in a good way. But yeah, I can only imagine how it could very easily be a full-time job downloading everyone's demos, and because for listeners that perhaps aren't on Twitter following a bunch of indie devs and things like that, it's relentless. It can be almost overwhelming. There is a lot of people out there making indie adventure games. So it's, I'd imagine, Michael, you should probably, I guess, could be the one to tell us, how many demos do you see a month? It seems like 3 to 8 more.
Yeah, I'd say more. I'd say double that. I mean, if you're on Twitter, which I obviously am, Yakwaxlips, there you go, a little plug. The Adventure Game Friday hashtag is amazing. They hand it off to a indie developer every Friday, and then you just read below, and you're looking at 70, 80 developers pushing out their game, whether it's just been released or whether they're working on it, and you're looking at 10 demos a week from some are tiny little demos that are barely demos, 2 or 3 minutes, and then you've got some which last an hour. I mean, I'm at the point now where I have to kind of. I've got a queue, like a huge queue, and I say I will play your demo. However, the review or whatever might not be out until 2 months from now, because of just the timing issue. But yeah, there's a lot out there, and I feel it's kind of not my job as such, but I just feel a sense of responsibility. The way that Yakwaxlips has grown over the past 2 years, especially with the YouTube channel that I started, I feel kind of a responsibility to point people into the right direction of the developers, and to send them over to GOG and Steam and to buy them, because they're not going to. It's basically it's free marketing for the developers, and at the same time, people will hopefully point their finger at me and go, "Hey, that guy's all right. He's doing good things for the community."
It's really such a small community that it's. Everybody's so interconnected, and everybody knows everybody else, that it really makes sense to work on the reputation that way, for sure.
It really is. Like in one of the jobs that I did previously, I was heavily involved in the folk music scene over here in the UK, and I still kind of am to an extent. And it got to the point where I was hosting events from people in Glasgow in Scotland, in Norfolk, and then people that are coming over from Germany, which, it's European, and then they all get into one little venue and they know each other, because it's a very similar scene. Like, it's really quite niche, but everyone knows everyone. Like, I heard of you guys, 2 years ago, maybe, when I joined the Facebook group. And then off that Facebook group, I've followed, must be over 100 different people. And then you realize that they also follow the same people, and it's all a giant community. And it's why I love it so much, because there's never a bad egg in there. People always get on and give each other information about what's coming out, and the old school stuff that you put on your site, which, the Monday meme dump stuff. It's just fantastic. I love it. I love the whole scene. It's brilliant.
Yeah, it makes me feel more sane, because I feel sometimes I can feel like just engulfed in complete madness over this obsession that I have. And then you jump online and just see the memes, for example, and you're like, oh, all right, I'm not that crazy. I mean, maybe I am, but there's a lot of people there with me.
Which I'm curious about. Michael, did you know anybody else that played computer games? Did you have family members or friends that were into them, or did everybody go like the route of the console? I mean, of the, the console game?
Well, I grew up, my brother and sister, obviously they grew up with a console. I was actually thinking before I came on, like, if we're going to, talk about the console one. And the reason I got into the genre in the first place was, it was Christmas 1990 or 91. And I actually asked for a Sega Mega Drive. Me and my sister were like, well, we'll ask together. And we flat out denied. My mum was like, no, it's console, not happening. But you can have an Amiga. And we're like, what's an Amiga? And she wanted to buy it because she thought it was more like a word processor. So, we can do work on it and we can research, which, obviously wasn't. And then we got it that Christmas, and the rest is history. All my kind of other friends around that time, and friends now, they were all, they had the Nintendo and they had the Sega. Didn't really have any other friends that played, not just Amiga games, but adventure games. It's really been this community that I've kind of found my people, and I can talk about
what
everything.
I'm talking about.
Yes, exactly that. Yeah, which is I can't wait for the events to start happening in real life again, so I can actually meet these people face to face and shake their hands and be like, oh my god, you're the Space Quest historian, I can't believe it. You talk about all this stuff, right, and then just the developers. And I can imagine myself fanboying, like meeting Dave Gilbert face to face or something. I mean, I was even massive butterflies in my stomach when I spoke to him on my podcast about this stuff. But to meet people like that and to have that community there is just brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with the just kind of being awestruck around these people, because even knowing Troels and being able to call him a friend nowadays, if I saw him in person, it would still be strange, because like his channel is like yours. It's the TV that I watch. I don't really watch sitcoms and things like that. So like to me, Troels is like Brad Pitt or whatever. He's the one that I've only seen on TV, and it would be super strange to meet in person and such.
I have to admit, it was pretty cool meeting a bunch of our childhood heroes and people who were just pictures on the back of the boxes. I don't know how much you do know about Sierra Games, but they really tended to promote the people that were designing and creating the games almost as a part of the package in the game itself. So I and most of us idolized them just as much as we idolized the characters in the games, if not more. So meeting them was just so surreal.
Yeah, I can imagine. I do feel like I missed out on a huge part of it there. It wasn't all, it wasn't me going, I don't want to play Sierra. It was, I was a 12-year-old kid and I got bought the games that I got bought for, and they were all happened to be LucasArts. I don't think there was really any nastiness towards Sierra. It was just plainly that, there was this LucasArts game out, and let's get the LucasArts game. I did actually just finish reading the Ken Williams books as well, the book, and it's brilliant, and I wished I knew more about it back then. It's one thing that I want to investigate further on in the future, because to be like you said, Paul, to be like the guy who you watch and know about computer games, adventure games, but me not have ever played King's Quest is kind of a bit, on the nose. So I need to set aside a good chunk of time to sit down and play. I mean, again, I have them all on Steam, like pretty much every single Sierra that you can get digitally. I have. It's just finding that elusive time.
Yeah. Well, Sierra just never really made it very big out in Europe, did it?
I think that's a big thing as well. Yeah, LucasArts were massive, like over here, massive. You had like the big displays I remember when Day of the Tentacle came out, and there was like the big displays out in the shops. And with Sierra, I mean, I didn't even know what Sierra was, to be honest, like because it wasn't really big at all.
There is absolutely. I mean, you probably already know this because even if you've never played Sierra, you probably are well aware of some of its reputation. Do not shy away from the walkthroughs if you're playing Sierra, because
die horrible deaths several times over. Yeah.
Oh, it's not even the deaths are actually like the fun part of the game for me, but it's just the Walking Dead scenarios. There's just so many dead ends, especially the earlier on you go. So just be mindful of that.
Yeah. That's kind of like the one, like I keep saying, I do play the LucasArts games a lot, but the ones that I kind of don't play again is Maniac Mansion, because it's the Walking Dead scenario where you just, you could be playing for hours and not realise that you can't actually complete it. So, I mean, maybe that's subconsciously another reason why I've not really picked up a Sierra game, because I know that I'm going to have to reach for the walkthrough, which I loathe to do.
Oh, and you might want to reach for it before you think, because you might get like 3 hours into the game and realize that there's something you should have done 3 hours ago, and multiple save files, and there's a bit to it, but it's still worth it.
Yeah, I absolutely will put it in my diary. By the end of the year, I would have played half a dozen Sierra. There's a task I've got to complete.
Half a dozen, got it.
One trick I've recently employed is bloody look up. What I would do is like search. I recently replayed the King's Quest games for the first time since my childhood. I'm not a huge King's Quest fan, and that opinion stands after replaying them. That's my way of kind of subtly telling you to play a different Sierra game when you do play one.
Yeah. Maybe
There's
not
much
your
better
first
ones,
choice.
in my opinion. Yeah, exactly. But a good trick to employ is I would just jump on Google and type in, King's Quest 3 dead ends, and it'll bring you to like fandom.com or wherever, and it'll just tell you the dead ends, so like you don't have to feel like you're cheating with the walkthrough, but you also know like the 3 things to definitely do in the game. So that's probably the best way to approach a Sierra game.
Cool. I will definitely be on that. I'll write that down now, because I will forget it.
Listen to the podcast episode and you'll be good to go. Oh, that's what I learned when I heard that. I do that all the time, because I don't hear myself and us when we're talking. I'm in the moment. So when I listen to it later, when it comes out, I'm like, damn, okay, yeah, that makes sense. That's information I can use.
I'm the same when I record my videos. In the early days, I was really quite particular. I cut every single word that needs to be right. And now I just talk. I'm like, if I get it wrong, I get it wrong. There's a person behind it. It's not just a machine, like, spewing out facts.
Yeah.
We never spew out facts. So,
we make it a point not to. It's dangerous stuff, those facts.
To the point where I've texted him after episodes and been like, hey, that thing I said with confidence, it was wrong. Cut that out.
Yeah. Or
to the
can
point
you
where
change...
that's my default assumption now.
Yeah, like I said 3. Can you make it sound like a 7, please? He's like, yeah, that's easy to do.
No, it's not. I find a way. It's not easy.
So you've played Toonstruck, right?
Way back when I have, yes.
Yeah, me too, kind of way back when. These guys, I brought it up a few times just to reference things about it, but they haven't played it before. So I'm just happy to have somebody on the show that even knows the game.
Yeah, it was a good game as well. And like, it was kind of a cliffhanger ending from what I can remember. And they were in the process of doing the sequel. I've seen some placeholder art for the sequel and all that, but it was not to be, and I think that ship has sailed, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, it's still worth playing, definitely.
Yeah, worth playing as long as you're not big on continuity or whatever. Like, it'd be nice even if there was like a book that explained everything else that was going to happen in the show. But it's funny because they had such a huge cast and they did so much. They filmed it, they had all the scenes all done up, and then it just was sitting who knows where, like in a filing cabinet. I
think what killed it here in the UK was the box art was terrifying. And it was aimed at kids, but the box art was like some killer clown thing, and so kids wouldn't buy it, and then adults wouldn't buy it, and it was like it just did terribly.
No, it was terrifying. Yeah, that box was absolutely terrifying. It's I think it's primarily white with like a just this Jack in the Box looking clown. Looks like he'll wrap you in cotton candy and drink your blood. Yeah,
it's pretty shocking.
Well, it was risque. I mean, even though it didn't push like right into the envelope, it pushed the envelope pretty good as far as the jokes and stuff go, which was just great when we were like teenagers and playing the game. I'm like, man, this game is awesome.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, for me, it was probably one of my first FMV games. I mean, if you can kind of call it FMV anyway, especially the intro. And to see that was like, oh my god! And it's Doc from Back to the Future, who's like my hero at the time. So it was
made it so much cooler.
Yeah. I think actually in recent years there has been petitions and Kickstarters to try and get like sequels off the ground and stuff. But like I said, I think that ship has sailed.
That's unfortunate because I feel like Christopher Lloyd would be well up for it, right? Because he did the voice for Old King Graham in the King's Quest reboot. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure he'd be on board.
That'd be cool. We'll have to wait and see. I won't hold my breath though.
So could you tell for like listeners that haven't stumbled across your channel yet, and they will after they listen to this, won't they? Could you tell us a little bit about Yakwaxlips and the goals for the channel that you have planned, what you're already doing now if they haven't seen it, just kind of the rundown?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Well, like I said, it's been going for about 2 years, and it only kind of really started off as a passion project over on Instagram. Actually, I thought I'll share some cool screenshots of some classic adventure games. People seem to appreciate that, so I did more and more. Then I opened a Twitter and a Facebook and all that, and I think it was January last year. I kept being asked by people, "Am I going to do videos?" So I thought, you know what, why not? I'm not going to shy. I'm not a person to shy away from it just because I've got to show my face or talk or something. I would gladly grab every opportunity I can. It was about a year ago I started out just with simple let's plays of Monkey Island and Full Throttle and that. But I started like that just to get a gist of how to do videos. What I really wanted to do, and still kind of want to do as I go forward, is more the deep dives and more the promoting the genre. So I'll have a look at old school games. I've done videos on like the best 10 characters in Monkey Island and alternative games to Monkey Island, a lot of Monkey Island references. And, but also, speaking to, indie developers, spoke to, and I think you guys did as well, spoke to Jonas Fish about, Prim, and did walkthroughs, of the Prim demo to show people about Prim. And going forward, it's kind of more of the same. I'm in a really great position where people will send me previews of games now, so I manage to play them ahead of time. And that, like I said, that elusive time. So I kind of try and play as much as possible of indie games, essentially, and rather than the big AAA studio games, and put them out and tell people this is awesome. There is a scene here. And I also, I think one thing which I stumbled upon was I'm in several of different Facebook groups and different kind of groups for adventure games, but there wasn't really one go-to place to find what was going on. So I started a show called Trailer Talk about 6 months ago, where I basically just show 3 or 4 trailers for adventure games that are coming out in the next couple of weeks. And people seem to really appreciate it. So then I kind of made that into a weekly show. And each week now, I do a 10-minute show where I will debut 3 or 4 adventure game trailers, talk about them, tell them when they're out, and leave little links in the description, etc. And again, it's another way to promote adventure games. And so that's kind of where it all comes from, really. And moving forward, it's more of the same, really. More letting people know more about it. Adding extra videos when I think about it. I mean, I've got like 10 video ideas in my head already about other things that I can do that will promote the genre. And so expect to see those on the YouTube channel at some point. And then the final thing that I'll would like to do is Twitch, because, you know, everyone does Twitch these days, and I've never streamed. So I've got a Twitch channel and all that. And again, rather than going on Twitch and playing Monkey Island, because, you know, everyone knows the game, I'll go on there and I'll play an indie game. You know, I'll play whatever indie game's been out in the past week. You know what? It's not even the past week. It could be the past couple of years, because indie game developers, a lot of games go under the radar, and I think I could be the guy who brings them to the forefront. So in the near future, I hope to do that as well. The short version is basically, if I could do something to promote the genre and I have the time, well, I'll do it.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of one of our goals too, ultimately in the long run, was to actually promote a lot more indie adventure games. Sadly, every time we cover indie adventure games on our show, we notice a very distinct drop in our listenership. So we try to we try to build up some goodwill before we crack out the indie adventure games, because we really want to be able to promote them, but they're not quite the draw as, you know, when we release something about, say, King's Quest or Space Quest, you know, then we bring the numbers in.
Yeah, I'm going to get a lot of hate from this episode after not playing King's Quest or Space Quest. I'm going to get a lot of people going, man, you're a fraud.
Or the LucasArts ones. Like, one of our biggest episodes is when we covered Fate of Atlantis.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And Maniac Mansion and such like that, which is also kind of amusing to note, because we mentioned how Sierra really promoted the developers, and the people behind the scenes, just they all become big names in amongst the community.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we have like the Coles, we have Al Lowe, the Williams, of course, are legends. But then we bring on someone like Noah Faustine, and it's just kind of just another episode. You know, I even posted in the LucasArts group, hey, we're going to have Noah Faustine on. We'll take questions if you want us to ask them on the show. And we got like no responses from it, because no one really knew who he was. Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, but you know what? You definitely won't get any sort of hate, because I think we don't represent our own listeners very well in just constantly banging on about Sierra. I think the silent majority is still on the LucasArts side, and we all love LucasArts as well. I think the problem when it comes to the show and such with LucasArts for me is that they're kind of just too perfect. There's really no controversy. Like every game they done was amazing. Maybe not you, Zach, but you know, even Zach McCracken, even as their weakest link or whatever, it's still not a bad game. I had a good time with it. Granted, you know, I succumbed to using a walkthrough at some point. So that being said, it was enjoyable then. But yeah, with LucasArts, their games are just all amazing. Whereas, you know, with Sierra, we can argue and, you know, go down the rabbit hole. Honestly, mate, you probably don't even need to play many Sierra games if you've been listening to the show. I think we got you covered. You probably feel like you have.
You know more than the average person just by listening to one episode of ours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the major problems with people these days is, and it was my problem 2 or 3 years ago as well, is just not realizing the vast array of games that have come out. Amazing games, because people would rather go back to the so-called golden days. And I think it was again, speaking to Francisco Gonzalez again, he worked out that in between 1999 and 2000, I think like that 10-year decade of the so-called classic era, since like in the past 5 years, whatever, there's been more games released now than there was then, or something like. Basically, yeah, there's so much around there, but people are still harking back to, it's not as good as Monkey Island, you know, it's not as good as Broken Sword, it's, you know, I'd rather play those. And like I say, I was exactly the same 3 or so years ago, and which are kind of one reason why I decided to dip my toe in the water and do what I do.
Yeah, no, I'm really glad that you are, because the modern classics, or modern adventure games more appropriately, there's just amazing games out there. But yeah, we've all been guilty of going back to, you know, like comfort food, running back to Space Quest or Monkey Island or wherever. But at the end of the day, I mean, yeah, you've got to, expand your horizons if you're not playing the modern adventure games. You could even do it like myself and Michael and my co-host as well, usually picking the pixel art ones. It feels like it looks like it, but it's just amazing. The stories are fantastic. Like you said earlier, mate, it's they can be a little darker, a little more mature, or not. However you like it, because there's that many options. But yeah, that's my favorite segment on your show is the trailer talk, because it's so fun to see what everyone's coming out with, and it's been good. You know, for anyone that's played Whispers of a Machine or Kathy Rain or Gemini Rue or Golden Wake, there's just been some amazing games in the last 10 years, and I think some of us can be guilty of buying new adventure games, which is lovely. That is most of the point, I suppose, but we can be guilty of buying them and then just letting them sit in the library while we revisit Space Quest again. So if that's what you're going to do, cool, because you're buying it, you're supporting the developers, but it would be really nice if you played it too. I'm also saying that to myself.
Reminder, play the indie games in your library, Paul, and everybody else.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, like I've got so many in my library, and I get given, 1 or 2 a week, which is like, I'm totally privileged in that aspect. I don't have time to play 1 or 2 new games a week, so I have this list that goes on for quite a few months. One thing that I started to do is, I think the Steam Game Festival last summer was when the first time I did it. I basically tried to play all the adventure game demos I possibly could and review them in one video. And I mean, it took up my entire weekend, the Friday to the Monday, and I didn't see my wife at all. And it was amazing. And then I have to edit the whole thing. It was so much work. And it felt like, I was exhausted, physically and mentally exhausted. And then you put it out then, and the response from it was brilliant. Like, people were saying, I'd never even heard of this game. Even though the festival was on and all that, it was so like tucked away and hidden because there was thousands of games to play. And so, and I kind of try, every time there's a festival on, a digital festival, I kind of try and do that now. I set aside, here's 4 days of my life gone to play games. And I'm going to do that because people need to know about that tiny little Slovak game that cost $2,000 that they kickstarted 3 years ago, which is finally coming out, and it's a one-man team. It's like, they need to play, they need to know about this stuff.
Yeah. No, it's brilliant. It's. I think a lot of us, when we get this passionate or borderline obsessed with it, we'd have a tendency to, I guess, try to make a game of our own, things like that. But nobody was stepping up and filling like the void in the media side of things and the promotion side of things. So I'm really glad you did. And I think I could be mistaken, but if you said it was like last summer, that video you just spoke of might have been the one in which I discovered your channel by. But regardless, I remember it vividly, and yeah, I think I wishlisted, 9 out of the 10 games that you had reviewed. Not saying it was 10, you know what I mean. But yeah, it was important, and it just on my case alone is proof that it worked, because I did go and wishlist at least every pixel art game, probably a few others, and when they're available, I'll be buying them. So it's you're achieving that goal.
Will you be playing them, Paul? You've got to play them too. But yeah, I mean, I feel like my job is done in that case, because that's exactly the reason that it's not the reason I set Yakwaxlips up. I set it up because I wanted to share old school adventure games, but it's definitely my philosophy now and the reason that I do this now. So I really appreciate that you said that, because it makes me feel like, yeah, I'm doing a good thing.
Yeah, no, you really are. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I need to take my own. I'll listen back to this episode and hear myself yelling at everyone, including myself, to play them. One thing to get out there for any listeners who don't know, it's a nice reference, but for anyone who's not familiar with the origin of your name of Yakwaxlips, could you tell them?
Yes, I mean, someone mentioned it to me the other day, and I didn't even really realize this, but there is a yak in Zach McCracken, but mainly the Yakwaxlips reference is, of course, I've mentioned Monkey Island numerous times, but yeah, when you go into the mansion in Monkey Island and you use all the things, and it's like, in my eyes, it's one of the best scenes in adventure game history, apart from the dancing skeletons in Monkey Island 2. They're fighting behind the wall, and they use the Guybrush uses wax lips with a yak, and yeah, there it is. Coming up with a name, I was like, can I call myself Plunder Bunny? I mean, it's a bit obvious. And then there was already someone called Plunder Bunny who looked quite questionable in quite a evocative way. So I thought, I'm not going to go there. And so, yeah, I Yakwaxlips, there it is. And the icon that I use for Yakwaxlips is the actual icon that is used in the game, although tweaked a little bit due to copyright reasons, of course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that's brilliant. That's funny about Plunder Bunny too. I imagine if you'd stuck with that name, you'd probably get free demos in your messages as well as perhaps some lead content.
Yeah, I absolutely would.
And, various photos of things.
All right, well, we're going to start to wrap up here. Michael, it's been lovely talking to you, mate. I really do hope to get you back on. We should touch base every now and then and see what's going on. But before we go, could you take a second just to plug your channel and your website, Patreon, things like this? Yeah,
absolutely. I have all of that. I have a brand new website which has been live for a couple of weeks, which is yakwaxlips.com. Everything is Yakwaxlips, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all of that stuff, YouTube. Just type in Yakwaxlips, it's there. And yes, I do have a Patreon for people who want to throw a bit of cash my way to help with essentially my time making all the stuff. But yeah, just check me out at yakwaxlips.com.
Lovely. Yeah, everyone, please go check out his YouTube channel. His content is amazing. If you see him on Twitter, say hello. Give him a retweet. Those things mean a lot to creators of any sort. It's just a little tap of your finger, and you move on with your day. But it really makes theirs. So if you see a cool new video posted by Michael, give it a bloody share. Was that subtly guilt-ridden enough? I hope so.
That was perfect. Yeah, all you need to do is just point and click. There you go.
Exactly. Nice. And if you don't, we won't be mad. We'll be disappointed. Thank you all very much for listening to the show today. As always, you can find us on Facebook. We're a page. We're a group. We're also on Instagram at CGG Podcast. We're on Twitter. Do us a tweet at the CG Guild. You can send us an email, mail@classicgamersguild.com. And a huge thank you to all of our Patreons. Love you guys. Thank you so much for supporting us. It means the world to us. And extra special thanks to those in said tier would be to Jay Holmes and Mark Fillion. Be sure to check out Mark's game, Chinatown Detective Agency, on Steam and GOG, and wishlist it and press all the buttons or smash them if you like. That's it. So thanks. And I hope you don't do a murder.